Welcome back, boys and girls, to Mighty Ride Junkies. Today we are going to focus on the rides that opened and are still opened from 2000 to 2009 at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Starting with one of my favorite rides, Goliath. Goliath opened on February 11, 2000, and like almost all the roller coasters at Magic Mountain, it held records. But, like almost all the roller coasters in Magic Mountain, these records were shortly lived, especially for Goliath, as it didn't even retain any of its titles for longer than 3 months. Still, this ride is a beast of a ride. With a whopping 4,573 feet of track, this coaster sends you down a 255-foot drop underground, only to be launched back up 185 feet just to send you back down. Once you get through the drops, the coaster then sends you through a series of turns as you experience a massive 4.5 Gs of force pressing you into your seat. You go through all of this at 85 miles per hour, and still it will take you almost 3 full minutes before coming back to the loading platform. What makes this ride stand out is that it is definitely a thrill-seeker ride without the vertical loops, corkscrews, or any other inversions. Even more so is the time it takes for the ride to be complete, although you do spend most of the time going up the first chain lift. What's even more interesting is how long this chain actually is. Usually when a ride has a massive lift, it has 2 giant chains instead of 1 that connect where the first chain runs out of material. However, this does make the lift slower. So Six Flags probably thought this through and made 1 giant chain that had to be custom made. But this did cause a problem in the future. While Six Flags did its best to maintain the chain in working order, eventually normal wear and tear led to the chain needing to be replaced in April 2015. Except the company that designed Goliath went bankrupt and no longer existed. So they had to order the chain from an independent company in Switzerland that took more than 2 months before the ride was operational again. Thankfully, this shouldn't happen again, as this time Six Flags also purchased a backup chain. Most roller coasters that are known for height don't really have this length of ride time. They usually shoot you up, then as you come down, it's a turn and that's it. King Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure is a perfect example of this. It holds the record for the tallest coaster in the US and goes a lot faster than Goliath, but the ride doesn't even last a minute.
That's fast.
Fastest man alive.
Which might explain why you can't get a date.
Yeah. Hey!
Goliath doesn't fail to keep you entertained by continuing through some pretty intense turns. If you don't believe me about the caliber of this ride, in its first 5 years of operation, it placed in the top 20 best steel coasters in the world. Today, it's still placed in the top 50. Goliath has gained some attention in the Hollywood market. It was in a very crappy kids movie called Judy Moody and the Not Bummer Summer, and was featured in an episode of Entourage where, interesting enough, it went by a DC superhero name that hasn't had its own ride yet. Aquaman. Maybe Magic Mountain will soon have a new water ride or submarine ride where you follow the seaman.
Seaman! That's what I said. Seaman. Stop it!
And this is one of the many reasons Aquaman is not taken seriously. Now we come to my number 1 ride in the park, X2. This ride literally has it all. On the X2, your seat is completely off the actual track and coaster. Instead, it's attached to swifting rods that spin the seat in a complete 360-degree spin while the coaster continues down its track. Basically, you don't see where you're going, and when you think you're about to figure it out, the seat sends you in the opposite direction. So get ready to face 4 Gs of force at 76 miles an hour. What's awesome about this 3,610 foot of track newbie is that the ride will last almost a full 2 minutes. That's something to be said about a ride that is releasing a completely new concept. Usually when parks are trying to release a brand new ride with brand new features that have never been seen before, they develop a shorter ride to make sure people will actually enjoy it. Magic Mountain took a major risk with this ride, making it so long and different. Even more so when it started facing similar problems to Superman the Ride. Before X2 was X2, it was just X. But the ride had some major issues because of its complexity. Originally set to open in the beginning summer season of 2001, it had major technical difficulties. The ride was postponed to the year's holiday season, but even that wasn't set in stone, and after missing the holiday break by a week, the ride finally opened on January 12th, 2002. But the problems didn't end there. The weight of the coaster was taking its toll on the tracks, and more importantly, the gearboxes on the actual coaster that powered the moving seats couldn't keep up with the high volume of ride rotations. X couldn't even make it to the summer when it closed in early June 2002 to update the mechanics that made the coaster run. When it reopened in August the same year, it seemed Magic Mountain had finally figured out the issues they were having. Except, the cost and routine maintenance was taking a toll on the park financially. Not only did the park find themselves fixing or replacing parts more periodically than any other ride in the entire company, they also had to deal with random issues that started popping up that was leading the ride to close. If you were going to Six Flags back then, it was always a gamble if X would be open or not. It took 2 years of existence before the ride ever experienced its first full summer, and it still had so many issues that Six Flags finally made one last effort to make the ride perfect. And they achieved that by closing the ride. On December 2nd, 2007, X completely closed with only one word from Six Flags: redesign. New coaster carts were developed that were substantially lighter than its predecessor and also worked a lot smoother. New restraints also were more comfortable and had more security features added to them. X2 opened to the public on May 24th, 2008. The coaster was not only new, but the track had been painted a new color and special effects had been added to the ride. The coaster themselves were also equipped with SFX speakers to play music while the ride was in motion. Since it opened in 2002, the ride has been in the top 25 roller coasters of all time, and the ride has even spawned some clones throughout the world. Moving on to the Scrambler. This one is kind of tricky to old Magic Mountain junkies. A lot of you who have been going to the park well before my birth may be thinking, didn't the Scrambler open in 1973? Well, yes and no. Magic Mountain had a Scrambler ride that opened in 1973. However, in 2003, a massive tree root sprung up right underneath where the Scrambler sat, causing enough damage to total the ride. But it couldn't have been better timing. Six Flags Over Texas had just bought a new Scrambler, and like the poor younger stepchild, Magic Mountain was given Texas's old Scrambler. While trying to figure out where exactly to put their 16th roller coaster, Magic Mountain decided to close up a section of one of their parking lots to build their new roller coaster, Scream. I will admit they didn't do a lot of effort in removing the parking lot or putting an actual theme on the ride. Next time you're on the ride, look down and you'll be able to see many of the old parking spaces. Scream is a floorless roller coaster that lets your feet dangle over the track, which to me is a cheap version of a hanging roller coaster. But anyway, the track is 3,985 feet long and takes you through 7 loops, tying in 4th place worldwide for most inversions. The ride starts by sending you down a 141-foot drop before going through its highest vertical loop at 128 feet. But what's even more exciting than that is its zero-G roll that will make you feel completely weightless as you travel through it. The ride reaches speeds of 63 miles per hour, however the majority of the ride you'll be doing 50. Because of the inversions, you do get to experience 4 G's of force, and it will take you a little over 2 minutes to finish the track. When Scream first opened on April 12, 2003, Magic Mountain was excited. They claimed this ride would be what the park had been missing since it was battling attendance issues. However, it wasn't. While the ride does have its fans, there are just as many people who didn't like the ride. With the awkward location of the ride, you won't see this ride get a lot of attention either. Out of the years of operation and average wait time per day, Scream has taken last place every year since it's been open for the park's major roller coasters, which is honestly a shame. While there are way better rides in the park, this is definitely a must ride for newbies coming to the park. I guarantee you, if Magic Mountain ever decides to give this a solid theme, there will be a lot more people riding it. On to one of the most agonizing line queue rides out there, Tatsu. This ride opened May 13th, 2006, after construction only took 6 months. It was Magic Mountain's first flying roller coaster. There aren't many in the world, so if you haven't been on one or even seen one, it's basically a ride that after you're secured into your seat, it lifts you up so you're facing down to give you the illusion that you're flying. And in typical Six Flags fashion, it broke world records. 4 to be exact. It was the tallest, fastest, and longest flying roller coaster when it opened, holding on to that record for 10 years before it was finally broken. However, it still holds one record to its name of having the tallest pretzel loop inversion on a roller coaster at 124 feet. This is honestly the most intense thing I have ever felt. Your body is being pressed with an intense G-force of 4.1 that you feel every bit of while you go upside down, then head first into the ground. It's enough to make even the most experienced ride junkie black out. If that isn't intense enough for you, when you reach the top of the lift, you'll be looking straight down 170 feet before going down a 111-foot drop, which instantly gets you to 62 miles per hour as you go across 3,602 feet of track. Six Flags claims this ride takes 2 minutes start to finish, but don't expect to be on and off the ride that quickly. Because of the complexity of the ride, the loading does take a bit longer than average, but when you're waiting to depart from the ride, get comfortable, as this is one of the longest depart processes I have ever experienced. So now we move on to the final ride of the decade, Terminator Salvation, until the park ended all license agreement and changed it to Apocalypse the Ride. My goodness, if they could have kept one license agreement, this would have been the ride to do it. The ride was so awesome when it was the Terminator. You would walk through chaos as the resistance against Skynet continued their fight. They encouraged you to join, and eventually you didn't have a choice and were thrust into the resistance to fight the Terminators. Now it's a lazy attempt at making an apocalypse ride. If you haven't paid much attention to the story of the ride now, you're basically a survivor trying to outrun some bad guy and the apocalypse on a train? What's even worse, they kept everything from the previous version of the ride except the actual Terminators. I mean, you can still see the Skynet S's on the wall in the line queue. Why couldn't you do something like, I don't know, running from the Four Horsemen or something? This makes it feel like when Six Flags ended all license agreements, they were just like, okay, need an idea for this ride that is a similar feel to the Terminator. Well, Terminator was about preventing the apocalypse, so why don't we just make an apocalypse ride? Then we don't have to change a thing. Which is a shame, because this ride is awesome. At 2,850 feet of track, you'll be sent down a 100-foot drop before reaching and staying at a constant speed of 52 miles per hour. For a Woody, that's pretty good. See, wooden roller coasters have a saying that when the wood bounces, you're in good shape. This is because if the wood doesn't bounce, it'll snap under the pressure. Also, for any of you wondering, Woodies are coated with a special protector that stops any damage from weather and makes termites unattracted to the wood. One of the main reasons Woodies aren't smooth like steel coasters is because of the wood bouncing back and forth between the moving coaster. This ride doesn't get enough credit that it deserves, so make an effort to ride this ride next time you're at Magic Mountain. If you still need more convincing, the Golden Ticket Awards, which is basically the Oscars for theme parks, has ranked this ride within the top 50 wooden roller coasters in the world since it first opened, even ranking as high as 27th best. And that, boys and girls, is all the rides from 2000 to 2009. Check back soon for 2010 to the current present day, and the easiest way to do that is to subscribe. If you've learned something new or enjoyed this video, give that like button a click, and I'll be seeing you soon.